This event is very near and dear, and it is sponsored on the Brown side by CSREA, which is the Center for the Study of Race and Ethnicity in America. It's a handful. And I've been director for 2 years, and we've reconstructed it as really a public research center. Our role is to build community among scholars and students who are working on race and ethnicity in the U.S. across all disciplines, as many as possible. Even this year, we've gotten into the sciences. We're going right to the edge. To develop new and enhance existing research networks. You know, a lot of times we work in our disciplinary silos. We don't talk to each other. And the idea here is to say, well, if there's one person in English and one person in history and one person in engineering working on race, well, what happens when we all have a conversation together on the topic? To foster public conversations. I'm deeply committed to the idea that research is useless if 6 people are the only other people who hear about it. Sometimes you go to events where you think everyone's got all this great information and nobody knows. So making it public and accessible is very important to us. And we're hoping that through those 2 or 3 agendas that we can really change the public conversation. Because it's my deep conviction that we're in one of the most complicated and unaddressed racial moments in U.S. history, where we're living in the biggest fantasy we've ever had about race. And it's actually sometimes worse than a bad reality, because an unacknowledged bad reality that we think is a fantasy of perfection leads us to make very problematic decisions that are hard to challenge. And so what we're dedicated to really is the issues that emerge in this moment, particularly the last 50 years. And this convening is right in what I'd call the sweet spot of our mission. It is a convening of incredibly distinguished, committed scholars who are doing really important research, but also thinking about how that research connects to everyday life, thinking about what are the outcomes, what are the day-to-day structures that this kind of research can impact. And also to take unaddressed things that are often not so much, not part of the mainstream conversation. We're interested in pushing on the boundaries. So this is really an exciting possibility. It's also an extra wonderful event, because we were able to collaborate with the Stephen C. Rose Legacy Fund, which is a family fund of which I'm obviously related. It's like Rose, it's not random. And my sister-in-law, Stephanie Bell Rose, has just been a terrific collaborator. We thought this through together, and it's just been a real delight to work with her. It's been an honor and a surprise honor. I didn't know we'd have that possibility. But at the heart of the event are both difficult issues and some difficult personal moments, because the loss of my nephew is one of the reasons for this collaboration and the timing of it. While these issues in general have always been near and dear as an educator, and I'll talk about that in a minute, there's a way in which, personal reality and professional responsibility come together in those moments that make you realize an increased sense of urgency. So this is kind of a really important example of how crisis and loss can be turned into opportunity and abundance. And so the outpouring of interest, we moved it to this venue, which is apparently colder than I thought it would be. But what's good about that, just as an aside, is it'll keep us focused. This is nice and focused. And there's coffee for when it gets terrifyingly cold, okay? But the abundance here is really about the outpouring of interest. I mean, I've done a number of symposium in my life as a scholar, and never have I gotten the kind of response that this event got. And some of that is excellent organizing and networking and collaboration, but some of it is that this is an incredibly important issue that is under-addressed. And in particular, young people of color, high-achieving young people of color, are at a kind of intellectual, conceptual crossroads. People think that once you're high-achieving of color, the game is over. You've made it. You're proof the system works. And you wander around thinking, this system don't really feel like it's working so good. But everyone's telling you it's working, and everyone's telling you that you've made it, and that aren't you personally responsible for this amazing success. And at the same time, my experience as a student, a first-generation college student in my own family, but also as an educator for 5 years, just a little bit. I've just got out of grad school. For a long time, my experience as an educator has been incredibly shaped by precisely this tension, that young people see themselves, young black and brown students in particular, come to my office year after year, completely racked with doubt about their ability. I can't tell them enough how brilliant they are, how dedicated they are. I can sit all day, and I can't convince them of this nagging, socially constructed sense that they are not good enough. And this is too consistent. As you know, when you have a pattern of this magnitude, it's no longer about the individual. It's a constant sense that they have to be perfect. Any moment they're not perfect is proof they shouldn't have been here in the first place. And I've taught everywhere. I've taught at Yale, I've taught at Wesleyan, I've taught at NYU, I've taught here, I've taught at Santa Cruz. Same story. It's not a regional issue. They don't reach out for help as much because the idea that you need help means what? You don't belong, you're not perfect, you're not here. So all of this pressure that is not about one's own mental health history, but it's about the context for the articulation of that history. And that's the intersection that we really want to tackle today. Both the mental health component, but also the social constructs that shape what kinds of opportunities people take advantage of and the potential expression of non-environmental factors. So this post-race moment we're in and the microaggressions that shape it and the denial of the context really produce an illiteracy, and that's what we're here to transform. We're really in the business of using research and education and community and expertise to transform and change this illiteracy into really a public conversation. So I worked with a variety of people on this title of this event. Amanda Boston, the researcher, graduate student of mine, who's did a wonderful job for Stephanie and myself, worked on this title together. And it's The Young, Gifted, and at Risk is a revision of Lorraine Hansberry's phrase. For those of you who don't study or African-American literature or who aren't African-American, if you are, you know Lorraine Hansberry. I've decided that's just a law. Just in my universe, I can make laws up like this. Nobody listens, but I make them up. And the reason we chose it is because, Lorraine was always trying to figure out how to make visible both the gifts and the risks of being an African-American youth. And the giftedness was not in the way we're using it. She really used it in a much broader way. We're all gifted. And it seemed really important to borrow that tension and sensibility. So we're trying to inspire a conversation that takes the gifts in mind, but also the risks to which she was deeply committed. So in closing, before I turn it over to Evan Rose, I want to thank my staff because I can't tell you how much work all these events take. We do many things. And it's my rule that if you don't notice anything, it took twice as much work as if you did. So the more it seems like it makes sense and everything flows, the more difficult and hard work went into it. And so if you can thank them at any time, feel free, because they really deserve it and make this possible. So thank you all very much for coming. I look forward to a wonderful day. And now I'd like to introduce my charming, fabulous nephew, Evan Rose.
Good morning, everybody. So I can't say how excited I am to see this many people come out and support this issue that we've been thinking about for incredibly long. And this is very, very near and dear to my heart. The Stephen C. Rose Fund was started actually around a dining room table in the aftermath of my brother's death. And so we were, sitting thinking to ourselves, this is a major issue. Stephen was a person who was incredibly intelligent, who was incredibly well put together, and he was also, an African-American man sort of navigating the shoals of life, and he was trying to figure out where he was going, what he was doing. And the issues that he dealt with are issues that are something that happened to quite a few other similar folks. And so what we came to after, quite a few days of deliberating is that we needed to speak to the researchers and to figure out the people who are pushing forward the discourse on mental health preparedness for youth and also for emerging adults. And so that means the people that are going into college, coming out of college, and trying to figure out what they're going to be doing with their lives. And so today really is the culmination of all of that work since that time. We've talked to quite a few researchers. We've talked to people who are pushing forward the interest and the knowledge in that space. And today we're hoping to come to not quite a conclusion, but some ideas that will help us to help others who are dealing with these issues. And that's really exciting for me, you know, having come from a dining room table to seeing 100 people in a room. And thank you again very much for coming. We're looking forward to hearing what people have to say today and to furthering the discourse. Thank you.